Bismillah, in the next section, the great Imam Najmuddin ibn Qudama rahimahullah ta'ala talks about the fourth right of brotherhood. And today, inshallah, in this session, we're going to look at number 4 and number 5, and we'll leave number 6 and 7 for the next session to follow. So if you remember from the previous session we had together, we're talking about the various rights of your brothers, your companions, and much like marriage has obligatory rights, one upon one, for both spouses, one upon the other. Friendships or close companionships, they also have rights that must be fulfilled. And so, after talking about the first 3 of those rights, the first being to help them with their needs, and the second being, with your tongue being quiet when necessary, speaking when necessary, not discussing things which are disliked. The fourth one goes into when it's time to actually speak. The right that your companion has over you in regards to what it is that you say. Brotherhood here or fraternity or sorority, if you will, what it requires is that you are silent regarding things which are disliked, things which are despised. But it also, on the other hand, requires that you speak about things which are praiseworthy or desirable. That when you engage in conversation or dialogue, or when you speak, in regards to that relationship in whatever capacity or facet, then it's done in a praiseworthy and a desirable manner. And this, of course, is from some of the very specific qualities of brotherhood, because simply being satisfied with or always being quiet is like, as the Imam says, it's like taking friends with the people in the grave. Essentially, like the people in the grave, you're not having a discourse with, you're not having conversation with, you're not talking to them, and they're not talking back. You may be talking to them. Visiting the grave, maybe you're talking to the grave or the person in there. They're certainly not. You're not having an active dialogue. You're not actually interacting with them. So being in a relationship with a friend or a companion where there's not much to it, there's not much engagement or dialogue, then this is basically similar to that. Our relationships and our companionships that we have, what's intended by them is for some benefit. We should benefit from them. There should be some fa'idah that comes out of them, and not simply to have them and be done with them. So here, when we talk about being quiet or being silent, refraining from speaking, what we're talking about is refraining from any harm, any verbal harm, whether you're doing that to the person directly, verbally harming them directly by speaking ill words, saying things that are inappropriate, abusing, or making fun of, ridiculing, mocking, and whatever it may be, or doing it behind their back, whether that's in the form of backbiting or slander or whatever it may be. So this is what's intended, of course, by being quiet and holding your tongue. What you should be doing when you're speaking, when you are engaging in conversation or talking, is you should be ingratiating yourself to your companion by the words that you say. You should be checking in with them, and checking in and seeing how they're doing. That requires engagement. You should be asking about what's going on, what things are happening in their lives and what they're facing. You should be trying to understand through conversation and dialogue. And by doing this, basically, you're going to be showing them that you are thinking about them. You're going to show them that, look, my heart is busy with you. I'm thinking about you. You're on my mind. You're in my heart, and so I'm worried. I'm concerned. I'm thinking about you and hoping the best for you. And then, of course, you should be openly happy, or you should be able to display happiness when they are happy as well. And this means you have to express happiness. You have to use words that express happiness in their happy moments, basically sharing in those happy moments. And this is the meaning of brotherhood, is that there's a share in both good times and bad times, is that you're able to share with them in their happiness and their sadness, in a befitting manner, of course. It's been reported, and then so basically that just gives you kind of a brief idea or concept of how you can engage with your friend or your companion by what it is that you say. And in doing that, you're basically letting them know that you're engaged in the relationship. And of course, this is from the prophetic practice, is to let your friend know how you feel about them. If you love them for the sake of Allah, then you should let them know that you love them for the sake of Allah. It's been reported in Sunnah Tirmidhi. Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِذَا أَحَبَّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَخَاهُ فَلْيُعْلِمْهُ, that if one of you loves their brother, then they should let them know. They should tell them, inform them of that. And in doing this, by letting your companion know that, listen, I love you for the sake of Allah, letting them know how you feel, this will only increase the love in that relationship. There's just a natural response and reaction that we typically have when someone lets us know how they feel, as long as it's positive, of course. If they truly do, if they're saying words of love and care and concern, I care about you, I think about you, I value our friendship, I love you for the sake of Allah, those types of words, there's this natural response that we have. We want to draw closer to them. And so this is a way in which you can strengthen your relationship. And there are numerous other ways in which you can strengthen your friendships and your companionships with those that are around you. And some of those ways are mentioned here by the great Imam Najmuddin. He says, calling them by their preferred names. And typically that's the name that they were given at birth by their father. And sometimes, we make nicknames for people and we call people by different things. But you want to make sure that what it is that you're calling them is a name that they actually like. Typically that's the name they were given at birth. Or if they have a preferred kunya or something of that nature, that they like that, so that's how you address them. It may not be, in our context here in America, we don't have a big nickname culture, as big as I've seen in other places and in other kind of like, in other groups, other cultural groups, where they have this culture of just grabbing onto a nickname and then just giving it to the person whether they like it or not. And sometimes the nicknames can be quite harsh. They end up calling them like donkey or fatty or silly or something. They may give you a nickname, or skinny legs, or I don't know. I think I've heard of many things interacting with different people from different cultures, and there's this kind of nickname thing that goes on, and oftentimes the nicknames are just given to you and you may not even like them. And so people will end up calling you that. But one of the ways in which you can increase the love is to make sure that you're addressing your friend in the way that they actually prefer. The great Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, he said, ثلاث, there are three things that will basically procure the love of your brother, if you will. تسلم عليه إذا لقيته, basically to say salam to him if you meet him. وتوسع له في المجلس, basically means like to make room for them when you're in a gathering. So if you're seated somewhere and you see your friend or your companion, you should naturally want them to sit with you. And so you make space and you tell them, hey, look, here's a space for you right here. I reserved a space for you. I have a place for you right here. And it makes them feel special. That look, they care, they're concerned, they always make room for me. And he also said, وَتَدْعُوهُ بِأَحَبِّ أَسْمَائِهِ إِلَيْكَ, and basically to call him by the names which he prefers. So here you can see that that concept is being supported by the great Omar ibn al-Khattab. Sa'id ibn al-As, he said, "Li jalisi alayya thalath." The one that I spend time with, jalis is like the one jalasa, the one you sit with frequently. There are three things which are due. If he comes, I welcome him. If he speaks, then I turn to face him. And if he sits, I will make space for him. So this is a good practice to have a number of other additional practices that you can see from these greats and these pious people. So the next thing that a person could do to increase the love and strengthen the relationship, the friendship, is to praise them with what they know of them from their good qualities and their good actions in front of whoever would be affected positively by that. Meaning basically like you mentioning your friend to someone in a very positive way that would have a positive impact on them. Could have a positive impact on your friend. Maybe a potential father-in-law, maybe a potential employer, maybe a potential teacher or mentor or anybody that it may result in a positive outcome, that if you were to mention them or praise them in that person's presence, then the outcome would be good for your friend. This is a way in which you can increase and strengthen the relationship. Also, to speak, to praise or commend their kids, their family, the things that they do, even their physical appearance, their intellectual prowess you can praise, their kind of disposition, which would indicate their good character and kind of their good character and etiquette. You could praise things that they were involved in, like if they authored books or the things that they produced. Anything essentially that they would be happy with, so long as it's not overly exaggerated and it's not untrue. Because if you go to extremes here and you're exaggerating praise, it can actually work against you. It can come off as if you're mocking a person. Or obviously if it's something that is untrue, then you're just basically like, you're kind of giving them a false sense of themselves, if you will. Like, you're going to praise them for things that are actually praiseworthy. So basically what this means is that you don't withhold praise and commendation. You don't need to withhold and refrain that for fear that they'll have this, just get this big head. Or, we shouldn't commend people for things. They shouldn't require that. They should do things for the sake of Allah only. That type of attitude, while a person that is being praised is not after that, right? That should not be our intent, to seek praise and commendation. But we as friends should offer it. And I hope you can see the distinction between the two, versus me looking for praise and thanks and acknowledgement as the intent behind my actions and my efforts, me wanting to achieve some type of status or some type of fame, some type of acknowledgement, whereas I do things sincerely for Allah and I do them because I believe in them. And then my friends and my companions, they acknowledge the good work, they acknowledge the effort, they acknowledge the outcome, they acknowledge the success, and they commend me for that. Those are two different things. And so as friends, we should be able to extend those positive words of reinforcement and praise to those that we care about. And this is a way in which you can offer encouragement, but also, to show that you are invested and that you care, and also that, you are invested in their success and happy when they succeed and when they do good things. And then you should also mention when other people commend them. Relate that, report that. Hey, look, I heard so-and-so say you did a great job the other day. or they were very impressed by your X, Y, and Z. So-and-so said that they thought you were a very well-mannered, or that you were very patient, or that you were very, I don't know, whatever may come your way that you hear, you shouldn't refrain from passing that on and letting them know that, look, other people are seeing your good qualities. And I just wanted to share that with you because I totally agree. As a friend to another, we should train ourselves to constantly be positive, to support and to offer positive reinforcement. Our words should be constantly positive. And that's a general trait and quality of the faithful, is that we train our tongues, that what comes off of them, it's only positive words. I have a couple of really great examples. There's two great examples of this. Is something that was related from Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam, that he was with his disciples and they were walking along and passed by the carcass of a dog as it was rotting, okay? And so all of his disciples, they covered their nose and quickly walked past the animal. Obviously, it's probably rotten and foul and putrid smelling, so they passed the animal, and when they got past, they commented, what a terrible smelling carcass, what a terrible smelling, what a rotten carcass. And Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam, he did not cover his nose, but he walked past at a regular pace. And then after they commented, he said, oh man, I'll give you the exact words. He says, Ma ahsanu bayali asnani. What beautiful white teeth. What beautiful white teeth. He said, listen, this is how my tongue is trained. I'm not used to bad words. I'm not used to negative commentary. I'm used to saying positive things. Basically, I find the positive in situations. And it may not have, it probably was not a lie. When the animal is rotting, you can clearly see the teeth. And so it's not that you have to lie about things or falsely flatter people or whatever, but you try and find the positives, and you get fixated on those things. Umar ibn al-Khattab, there was a narration of him, and I've seen this narration in numerous different forms, where he passed by a number of people that were sitting around a fire at night, and they were kind of talking and chatting. And he went up to them and he says, Ya ahla nur. We know the word for fire is nar, and the word for light is nur. And there's a connotation between the two, a different connotation for nur and for nar. Ahla nar would be like the people of the fire. And the insinuation could be, it could be very obvious, the fire is there, so the people around the fire, or it could be the people of hell. And so Umar al-Khattabi says, Ya ahla nur, O people of the light. And there's a connotation with the people of light, which is very positive, because the light is what is guiding you. Allah's light, etc. It's very positive. And so that's how he chose to address those people that he ran into. Ya ahla nur. So focusing on the positive things. And that's what we need to work on with the words that we use and the things that we say. Another thing that can be done here is to thank your friend for things that they've done for you, kind things that they've done on your behalf, is to not be stingy with gratitude. This is obviously a prophetic prescription here, in that man lam yashkur nas lam yashkur, whoever doesn't thank people hasn't truly thanked Allah. And who's more deserving of your gratitude and your thanks than those that are closest to you, that often offer you the most support? And so this is one way in which you can strengthen your relationship, by being generous with gratitude and words of thanks. Another thing is to defend them, to defend their honor, especially when they are not present. And if somebody intends evil with them, then you are ready to stand up to defend them and to defend their honor, and you're not going to turn them over and surrender them. According to the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, Al-Muslimu akhul Muslim, la yadlimuhu wa la yuslimuhu. The brother is a Muslim, the Muslim is a brother to another Muslim. He does not oppress him, nor does he turn him over or surrender him. And so, what a terrible way to surrender somebody, if obviously physically surrendering or turning them over, but to surrender their honor to be trampled upon in their absence by somebody attacking or backbiting or slandering them, and you just allow it to happen. As a good friend, as a good companion, you're willing to knuckle down and defend them and defend their honor. And there's two things here, there's two measures that you can use to do that. The first measure is that you can appraise the situation or imagine or visualize that what is being said about them is being said about you while they're present and you're not. And then you say what you would want them to say for you. Imagine you're in the situation when you're away and your friend is there, and someone starts to backbite or gossip or belittle you, and your friend is there in front of them, you're not there. What would you want your friend to say in defense of you? And then you say that very thing. Or you could imagine that your friend is actually present, though he is behind a wall. He's hidden, and he can hear what's happening. And then what's going to come? What would come into you? What would you imagine? What would you want to say, basically, in order to defend and to be his victor and his aid while he was present? And then think about what you would say if you knew that he was listening to you when he's absent, and say that thing. And if you knew that he could hear what you're saying, even though he's not there, then when he's not there, you say that very thing in defense of him or her. This does, I'm hoping that this would show, this does illustrate, it demonstrates the weighty nature of companionship. And if a person is unable to do that, and this is mentioned by Imam al-Ghazali in Ihya, if the person is unable to do that, is to live up to these and fulfill these rights of their companions, then they're better off alone. It's better that they stay alone. Al-uzla, we've talked about that, which is seclusion. We talked about this in our last session, last Ramadan. Seclusion, to seek seclusion and not to take companions, not to have companions because you're unable to fulfill the rights of your companions. It's much like marriage. If you're unable to fulfill the rights of your spouse, for whatever reason that may be, then you're better off single. The nature of companionship and friendship is very weighty, and it's not something that everyone can take on. Another thing is teaching and sound advice. Your friend is not without need of knowledge, as he is not without need of money. Just as he needs wealth and monetary support or physical support, he also needs support in terms of learning and gaining knowledge or sound advice. And so if you can afford to share knowledge, meaning you have it, فَاقِدُ شَيْءٍ لَا يُعْطِي, the person that has nothing cannot give anything. So if you possess knowledge, if you have something that you can impart and share, then you should certainly do that and be willing and generous with that. He also says it's important that you, when offering advice, you do this in private. You do this secretly. Advice or counsel is done in secret. It's done between you and them. And this is the difference between scolding somebody and reproaching them versus giving them advice. The difference, the quality between that is making it public or private. Giving someone good advice publicly is a form of scolding and reproaching. It's not actual nasiha at this point. It's now scolding the person because you've laid bare whatever it is that you're trying to bring their attention in front of other people. Okay? And this is just like what Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that if you are to wa'adha, which basically means like to provide guidance, if you will, to your brother in private, then this is considered nasiha. And this is something that is like an adornment. It's beautiful. But if you were to do it in public, faqad, he says here, then indeed you have fadahahu. Then you have like exposed him, and it's a shame, basically. So keep that in mind, offering advice. I know it's a big thing in our tradition in Islam, ad-dinu nasiha, etc., as the hadith indicates, that it's the religion is sincerity or sincere advice or counsel, or however you want to understand the hadith in its various different facets. Between brothers and sisters, advice and counsel is needed. But there are manners and there are tactics, there are strategies, there are etiquette to it, and that has to be observed. Otherwise, it does not become nasiha, it turns into something else. And just as you would not want to be scolded or reprimanded or advised in public about perhaps something you did wrong or a mistake or an error or a blunder, you wouldn't want to be, addressed in public. Don't be addressing people in public in that way. You make a slip up or you say something wrong. There are obviously exceptions to this rule when it can be done in public. When it can be done in public, and I'll give you one example. That your teacher, your sheikh, for example, if he's teaching his class and he makes an error in teaching, if you know that everybody that's present are from his regular students, you can be quiet about it and bring it to his attention later. And then he can correct himself in the next meeting. If you, however, know that he's sitting in a gathering where there are people that are not regulars and they're likely to leave, and they could leave having witnessed a mistake or a blunder from your teacher, then you can bring it to his attention in a certain facet so that it does not detract from his status with the people that would leave. And they leave thinking he's made a mistake or he doesn't know what he's talking about, when you know that, look, it's an error, it's a blunder, it happens, it's a slip of the tongue. And so you bring it to his attention in some way that he can correct himself. So that's an example of when it would be appropriate to do publicly. Just one example. Otherwise, these types of things should be done in private to kind of preserve a person's honor and their dignity. Also goes on to talk about pacifying a person versus just offering them lip service. Pacifying meaning trying to calm them down or to allow them to pull themselves together. And this really has to do, the difference between offering lip service and that really has to do the reason why you are disregarding something or overlooking something. If you did that for the sake of your religion and the sake of their betterment or well-being, then, you're trying to, you're pacifying, I guess, or trying to calm them down. If you did it because of some personal reason, or you're trying to achieve some type of worldly gain by not drawing something to their attention, like a fault or an error or a blunder, and you're just not doing it because, like, look, if I say something, then, he might get upset and then I won't get the thing that I'm after, or she'll get upset and then I won't have the position I have with them, etc., and it's going to ruin my status. Then this is lip service, and this is like hypocrisy of sorts. It's like فَأَنْتَ مُدَاهِنْ. He says, also from that is الْعَفُوُ مِنَ الزَّلَّاتِ فَإِنْ كَانَتْ زَلَّتُهُ فِي دِينِهِ. Basically, overlooking blunders and faults. If it's in regards to the religion, then you should be gentle and easygoing when you try to offer advice as much as possible. And you shouldn't start off going hard and heavy. You shouldn't go hard and heavy, preaching and admonishing. But if, however, they refuse to take the advice, the soft, gentle, kind, loving, caring advice, then you can begin to turn up the volume, crank it up a notch, and start to, increase the level of severity in how you deliver your advice and your counsel. Basically, you're going to crack down a little bit. The last part, this is number 5, this is where we're going to conclude for this session, is the 5th right here is a dua. To make prayer or make dua for your brother while you are alive, while he is alive and after he or she has passed on, and doing so in a manner which reflects the duas that you make for yourself. You need to make the same dua for your brother, for your companion. The things that you want from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you want for him as well. We go back to لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. You don't truly believe until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. And that includes the duas that you make. It's been reported in Sahih Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that da'watul mar'i, the person's supplication, the Muslim person's supplication for their brother, or we can understand for their sister, when they are absent is answered. There is an angel who has been entrusted there at their head. كلما دعا, every time they make a supplication, لأخيه, for their brother, بخير, in a good manner, قال الملك الموكل به. The angel that has been entrusted with them says, آمين ولك بمثله. Ameen means, oh Allah, answer. Istajib ya Rab. Answer my Lord, and for him the same. So basically, if you're praying for your brother, the angel is saying Ameen, and the same for you, meaning you that's making the dua. So the angel is now praying for you. In the instance that you're praying for your brother or your sister, your companion, your close friend, the angel is saying Ameen and is saying, and for you, praying for you in that particular case. As for supplication after death, let's mention here's a couple of examples before we move on. I think these are pretty powerful. Abu Darda, it was said that he would supplicate for many, many people. He would pray for them, many of his brothers, and he would mention them by name. He wouldn't say, oh, all of my friends, all of my companions. He would mention them by name, so-and-so, and so-and-so, and so-and-so, and you mention them. It was also mentioned that Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah ta'ala, radiyallahu anhu, would supplicate at night, in the depths of the night, for 60 people. He would pray on their behalf or pray for them. As for the supplication after death, Umar ibn Hurayth, he says, إِذَا دَعَ الْعَبْدُ لِأَخِيهِ الْمَيِّتِ, if the servant were to supplicate for their deceased brother, أَتَى بِهِ مَلِكٌ قَبْرَهُ, then the angel will come to their grave and say, يَا صَاحِبِ الْقَبْرِ الْغَرِيبِ هذه هدية من أخ عليك شفيق. They will go to the grave of that person and they will address them and say, this is a gift from your brother who is very shafiq, it's like your close brother. Here is a gift from your close brother. And so essentially your prayers for your deceased friends and companions are like gifts being delivered to them when you make them. And it should be noted that the people that are in the grave, they are aware of these things. They are made aware of your situation. They are made aware of, these types of efforts. And so, obviously, we would like to try and bring some relief, if we could describe it in such a way, to them who are in the grave. And that concludes right number 4 and right number 5, and that's where I will wrap it up for this session.